Yep. Yep. Okay, so apart from all of that, so Warcraft logs, dictates, the speed running rules, based on a lot of, feedback and input from the community, but they don't have anything on World First. So walk us through that first day and how Onslaught tackled that, trials, tribulations, what happened, like just story time. Give us the story.
Story time.
Okay. Well, thankfully, so we were, like I had said before, we'd prepared to the point where everybody was logged off on top of the Nax portal. So basically, we were just waiting. We had one person that was testing the portal to see when it finally had opened up. So as soon as it did open up, we were just told, okay, log in, everybody drop in and go for it. So we let's see, we started with the A bomb wing. So I was because we were doing the two separate raid things. We were going to do one full raid was going to do the A bomb wing and spider wing, and then after that we'd swap out everybody and bring in a fresh new raid for the what was the order we went? I think it was uh Death Knight wing and then the Plague wing. So, and the reason we originally did that was we thought there was going to be a chance that the Silithus buff, the sand buff, was actually going to be in the game before Nax came out, which meant that we would have been able to get the entire raid, the sand buff. And since it's only a 30-minute buff, we would have been able to have it for the entire run, essentially. Because like you could do 2 wings in half an hour, swap out a raid with new sand buff, and do it again. Turns out that wasn't the case, so that it was less advantageous. But um, we, well, the first raid that went in, so like the first 40 people weren't able to get the sand buff, but we actually did end up summoning the other raid to Silithus, got them all sand buff, so that way they were ready to go for the second half. So I actually played in both raids. I was on my warrior for the first half. My mage was scheduled for like the second half. So started an A-bomb with the warrior, got through patchwork, or got to patchwork just fine. Our patchwork
One
was...
question, real quick, before you go on.
Sure.
Is that kind of just to keep like mental acuity, like bringing in new people, and to keep like the people that might not, play full time 8 hours a day, or 12 hours a day, however much, you are able to play? Is that to give them just the ability to like really focus on the strats for those two wings rather than
Yeah, I think
trying
it's
to
for
know
buffs.
everything?
It was partially that, yeah. We
And
had a
then
lot of people because we were making sure that we hammered home pretty much the knowing the mechanics as expertly as possible before Nax actually came out. So yeah, we had that first group of 40 people like specifically focus on theorizing and min maxing for the two wings they were doing, and the other raid focusing and min theorizing on the other two wings. So it was definitely partially just that, and then also just like to make sure that the it didn't end up working out that way, at least not fully, but to make sure that you had the extra 5% damage from that sand buff for the full duration of the run instead of just half of it. So it was a combination of those two things.
cool, cool.
So, anyways, made it to patchwork. It was a little got sketchy at patchwork just because we didn't realize at the time that the bile retcher that's in the room with all the embalming slimes, we didn't kill that one. We just skipped it. We didn't realize at the time. Turns out if you pull patchwork and you haven't killed that guy, he pulls with patchwork. So
Oh,
we had
wow.
to and then all the embalming slimes had also respawned at that point. So we ended up having to do patchwork, and then during the middle of the fight, all the embalming slimes and that bile retcher came for us. So
Oh no.
yeah, thankfully we dealt with it. It was actually somewhat miraculous, but we were able to kill the bile retcher, and then all the casters turned around and AoE'd down the slimes, and so it ended up being fine. But that made the patchwork a little bit scarier than it should have been.
Imagine that, guys. Yip and Bob. I want you to imagine pulling all of that and coming out alive.
Sounds like a horror movie.
Sounds like something that we would just do anyway. I think we've been there before, just on other packs.
Oh, it was,
Yeah.
it was terrifying. We pulled it off, but like when I saw that coming, I was thinking like, oh, is this it? Like are we already finished here? But thankfully somehow we pulled it out, because I know there was it happened to other guilds too. I was watching their streams after the fact, and it happened to them as well. And a couple of guilds just straight up wiped because that happened. So
Is that
we
just
were
something on
fortunate.
private servers that didn't happen? Like you were able to skip those?
Uh, I don't remember on private servers if that guide pulled or not, but I think what it was is I think we had tested it on like the live PTR, like when Blizzard opened up like those little mini sessions for PTR. And so we went into the A-bomb wing and we tested to see what would pull and what wouldn't. And then they must have changed it, because I think if I remember correctly, that bio retro that ended up pulling didn't pull when we tried it, but clearly they changed it and didn't say anything. So it was a little surprise for us.
That's kind of
Joke
BM to
on
do it like
Stealth,
that.
stealth buff.
Yeah.
Hey,
But
but you guys got through it, so that's good.
Yeah, we got through it. So past that point, it was mostly smooth sailing, at least for a little while after that point. We did the rest of A-Bomb Wing fine, and then went into Spider Wing, did that mostly fine, although we had one of our main tanks die in the Spider Wing, so that wasn't ideal. But for the most part, we made it through those 2 wings, got through Spider Wing, it was fine, and then we ported everybody out because we were bringing in the new raid in for the final 2 wings. And so the plan was like, so while the final 2 wings were being done, the original raid, at least anybody who was going to come in for Saffron and KT, ported to Undercity and just got summoned back to Nax. And so for me, like, it was kind of a interesting juggling I had to do because I needed to get my warrior back for Saffron and KT, but I was also trying to do
While doing trash.
while doing trash. So I ended up doing it during Gothic since there's downtime during that boss fight anyways, but it was still kind of a logistical nightmare, especially since I was trying to do that and stream at the same time. So that got chaotic.
Sorry,
but
chat. I can't answer you right now.
yeah, too busy with like 9 clients open right now off to the side, getting
right.
myself summoned back. And things were going fine until the 3rd wing. So the DK wing, up to that point, we were about tied with Progress, the eventual World First Guild, as far as our progression in Nax was concerned. We were neck and neck with them at the time.
Do you keep tabs on that? Like, is that something that you're being updated as you're going through it, or is everyone just focusing and then you find out later you were neck and neck?
Not really. We weren't. We were just trying to go as fast as possible. We
Yeah.
weren't going to change our strat based on where other guilds were at the time. I had an idea of what it was looking like just based on my chat and what they were saying where other guilds were doing. It was kind of
I
funny.
imagine this like radio voice being like, "Progress is hit this milestone."
And in reality, it was more like just a wall of spam I could see in my peripheral vision of my chat, where it's just like insert X guild here is wiped, like they're done. And it came down to like eventually at that point. So we made it through all of DK Wing without an issue, and got to 4 horsemen. And at the time, I think Progress was probably 2 or 3 minutes ahead of us, and it was realistically down to us 2, like Progress and Onslaught, because every other guild had mostly wiped to the point where they were out of contention. And unfortunately, on 4 horsemen, we were going with the Burning Thane strat, just like has become pretty common for a lot of guilds nowadays. And when we were Burning Thane, that was going fine, but unfortunately, our Mograine tank ended up dying about 30 seconds into the fight. And without going too far into it, essentially, one of the shamans that was assigned to healing the Mograine tank.
Oh, it's not the healer's fault. Come on.
Well, normally I wouldn't be one to jump on the healers and blame them, but this shaman went a good, I think it was like 10 seconds or 7 or 8 seconds without healing that tank, and instead during that period of time chose to run in, drop a Searing Totem, and then run out of rage again. So
Okay, fair.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, there's some things the tank on that side could have done to survive as well. But regardless, the tank didn't get healed for like 7 seconds. He died, and then once any tank, I'm sure you guys have experienced this. Like once any tank dies on 4 horsemen, it's kind of game over at that point, or at least a cascading effect where things start going horribly wrong. So
yeah, at least before at least one boss is down, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we tried to pull it out, but unfortunately we ended up wiping there. And it was annoying because like as soon as you wipe once, like you're not getting world first if you wipe, unfortunately. So the run as far as getting world first ended there. But we kept going because we knew that obviously getting something like world second was still on the table. So the convenience, I guess, of having 2 full raids was that the other raid was still full world buffed and ready to go. So we actually we removed all 40 people that were doing DK wing and just brought in the other half that was still world buffed to do the rest of the run. And so we had done an invis skip, like when an invis spot in the DK wing. So unfortunately, we couldn't just bring in that new raid and just run straight to 4 horsemen because there was a bunch of mobs that we couldn't skip because the other raid didn't have invis pots because we didn't need them in the other raid. And so we did Plague Wing, I think, first, and then we had to go through and clear all the trash that we had originally skipped in DK Wing, and then we finally did 4 horsemen. And got that down and then at that point the good news was like while the second raid, who still had buffs, ended up clearing the wings they were originally not supposed to clear. The other raid ended up going out and getting world buffs again during that period of time, and we brought those people back in for Saffron and KT. So it was quite the nightmarish process getting people shipped in back and forth. But eventually we came back in, brought the fresh people in for Saffron KT, got Saffron down. without any frost resistance, which it was really good that we had the time to get people re-world buff for that Saffron, because the strat of using no frost resist, you had to have world buffs. Like, you can't do Saffron without world buffs with no frost resistance. It's probably just mathematically impossible. So
do you guys have like a reserve of heads and hearts that you're launching for these sort of situations? Like, do you have like a certain amount of characters who might have like hearts to launch new world buffs without having to depend on anyone else?
we do, yeah. We actually keep pretty close track. Like, we've got an entire guild master spreadsheet that keeps track of who still is sitting on like a Hakar heart or a Neff head or an Ani head. So we also have like the ability to reset the Ani NPC basically whenever we want. So yeah, that's how we did it basically. So it's still not convenient because you still have to get all the people out there, but at least we can for the most part get any world buff we want besides Ren buff at will. So that made something like that possible, thankfully. So did Saffron, came into KT and had a pretty smooth just one shot KT and got it down, and ended up getting world third. We were close to second. We ended up missing
like
out world second by
6 minutes or 4 minutes or something like that.
I think it was less. Yeah, I think it was like 2 or 3 minutes. We lost to Tribe, and so ended up getting world third. But it was still Horde world first, and it was still NA first. So it was still pretty cool. And I think the total runtime ended up being an hour and 50 minutes. So
yeah, I believe you were one of 2 NAs in the top 10. So EU definitely goes a little bit nuts. And you guys were NA first, and I mean, you guys killed it. And without that wipe, you guys might have had world first, which would have been awesome, right?
yeah, without the wipe, it was neck and neck. There's no way to say what would have happened. Progress was a little bit ahead of us, but certainly not. It wasn't a gap that we couldn't have made up, especially because our Saffron was far, far faster than anybody's really during that initial release day, just because we killed it so much faster since we weren't wearing frost resist. So hard to say. Unfortunately, we'll never know because the Syrian totem took priority, I guess, over healing. What are you gonna
Oh
do?
my gosh, is that person
That
still
poor
in the
guy.
guild? Like, I feel so bad for him.
He is. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've had plenty of people mess up in speedruns in the past, and we don't kick people just because they make one major error. I mean, I've made some horrific mistakes that have caused a partial or full raid wipe in the past, and like you can't really kick somebody because they messed up that badly, because we've all messed up that badly at some point. Obviously, he
Right.
picked a very, very bad time to mess up that badly. But I've made horrible mistakes in the past that could have very well have been in that run instead. So no, he's still ready.
Just to
It's
bring
so
it back,
sad though for him.
you guys lost by 2 minutes 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like you lost second by that amount. That is nuts.
Well, if it makes that guy feel better, Bob wiped us twice last night, so
Yeah.
Mel did
throw him
not
under the
wipe us at
bus.
all.
Yeah.